and welcome to the He Doesn't Want a podcast. Before we get started, I just want to introduce everyone to our guest sponsor for today's episode. Today's episode is sponsored by the West Belfast Sports Wellbeing Forum. As many of us may know, Northern Ireland has the highest rate of suicide in the UK, predominantly between men aged 25 to 29. This, of course, affects many of our players at football level. The West Belfast Sports Wellbeing Forum has just acquired office space in the dairy farm. They're in the process, thanks to donations so far, of fitting counselling rooms, a training room, and office space. Donations matter because for every large grant they've gone to apply for, they do not fit the criteria because it's a new organisation with no trading history. They need help in the interim from fundraising to achieve their goal. So far, they've raised over 2k, but this needs to reach £10,000 to help them do this. The West Belfast Sports Wellbeing Forum represents over 20 sports clubs in the West Belfast area, and this includes many of our own football teams within our leagues. I'm going to share the link for the GoFundMe page, and any donation, no matter how small, would be greatly appreciated. Let's see if we can make a difference. Hello, and welcome to the He Doesn't Want a podcast. I am joined by Mossley manager, head coach Ronnie Burns. Ronnie, how's things, mate?
Are you all good? What about yourself?
Not bad, mate. So I've been taking a prolonged break from the podcast interviews for a while, so I'm excited to get back into it, but I'll probably forget how to do it, to be honest.
I'm sure you I'm sure you keep me right.
It's meant to be my job anyway, so it is. So glad to finally get competitive football back. You started your season last Saturday.
Yeah.
How's the preparations went over pre-season, and how do you think is shaping up for the season ahead?
Really good, mate. You obviously know the tournament that you organised, which was super. I said that before. The night of the final. It was really good, mate. It was super, really well organised, and it sort of gave us a bit of a taste as to what's to come. Like our plan after the tournament. The tournament obviously went really well for us. At the final, maybe not so good, but yeah. We sort of were hoping to take a week, 10 days break, but the way it worked out, mate, the players were just exhausted, and so many games over a short period of time, and with work commitments, and it's like guys isolating and all these different things. We sort of decided as a club we would take a 3-week break.
Yeah.
So listen, the 3-week break was good in a way where we were able to clear up injuries, and some of our main players got quite bad injuries in the semi-final and things like that, and obviously had to miss the final. But it was good in a way where we could get those guys back up to scratch. But I felt then that 3-week break sort of set us back a wee bit in terms of fitness, So yeah. It was like starting all over again, mate. It was a funny pre-season. I'm sure most of the clubs felt exactly the same, but it took us a while, even starting back again over the last 4 or 5 weeks. I found the first, and I see a lot of teams online saying the same thing, and I would agree with them all. Over the first couple of weeks, we were getting really poor numbers at training. We were only getting across both teams, obviously with a first and a second team. Across both teams, we were maybe only getting 14, 15. Last pre-season, we had 40, and
yeah.
I found it difficult, but listen, the guys slowly but surely, as games came thick and fast and we got a bit of fitness up, we just had to stick with it. And guys, listen, you can't complain. You know what it's like. Guys are wanting to go away for weekends after the 18 months that we've had, and weeks away to different places when everywhere opened up. And you fully understand that. You have to support that. So it's been tough. It's been tough, but over the last few weeks, we've had great numbers. We've had some really good results in pre-season, and obviously started really well in the Steel Cup against Brandesburn last week.
See what you were saying there about the numbers and stuff, and it's one of those things where I was saying all along, once every football comes back, everyone will be buzzing to get it. But then you forget that everything's been stopped.
That's
so,
right.
Like you said, everyone's trying to get everything in at once. Weekends away, if they can get away on a holiday. And like it's the same for a lot of clubs. So,
yeah.
And then the break of the 3 weeks, it's almost like because you come back and trained and got yourself prepared for the tournament, and then took this 3-week break, and then went back again to train. It's almost like the start of 2 pre-seasons.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that I think psychologically in some players' heads, they're going, flip me, you know. And listen, some guys took to it like a duck to water, and some guys sort of struggled and were like, nah, do you know what? I need a wee bit extra time here, or I have a few things to do. I think one of our players has been away 5 times in the last 2 weeks. Like, he's really taking the piss out of it. But listen, mate, just the way it's been, you know, and it's like I say to the boys, you can't sort of say to guys you can't do this and you can't do that. It's amateur league football, and you know, of course, it's been a really tough 18 months, mate. And we support, you know, the players and doing what they have to do, and it's good for the players that, you know, they can go away, get their head sharp. Maybe it is a break with whether it's a weekend away somewhere or a week with the family. Now that things are opening up, they come back. You can see they're coming back hungry, you know. So in a way, it helps us, you know. So it has. I agree with you, mate. It's felt like 2 pre-seasons, you know, and if you look back then to last year when we tried to get it going and we played in the first round, I was telling the boys against Brandburn last week, my only competitive game the previous season, like most, was again the first round of the Steel Cup.
Yeah.
You know, and it was strange. You know, our next competitive game was again this first round of the Steel Cup the following year. So it's been difficult, mate. But I must say, pre-season went really well. There's been a lot of guys that's been a lot of changes at Mossley over the last couple of years, and even noticed a lot of changes. We had a big pre-season when I first came in terms of players in and players out. It needed done, but I must say, even this pre-season, between the 2 breaks from your tournament to starting pre-season, we've had maybe 5, 6, 7 players leave and brought 5, 6 in. So it's changed the dynamics of the squad again, you know. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, mate, but I must say we're really looking forward to getting going. And unfortunately, yesterday, as we've had a chat, we had a cancellation in the league and we couldn't get going. So that was again another big a big kick for us. But listen, we've waited 18 months, mate. We can wait another week, you know.
I know it's the thing as well. Like when you were saying about new signings, I was going to ask you about new signings, but what is a new signing now? Because some boys have never played a competitive game for a club, but they might have been there for a year,
exactly.
So they don't feel new anymore. And then you could say like some boys have come in last year, they're probably away again. And
funny, guys are telling me we went down recently there. And the boys played against Dundrum. You know, it was one of the bus trip to go down to Dundrum and play, and the first and second both went. And the funny thing was, I've been there for like a year and a half, and the boys were, when we have to sing your initiation song. Hang on, I've been there 18 months, you know. What's been on, like? But that's the thing. Like, you know, normally at a club, you're maybe getting 4 or 5 boys singing initiation songs. I think about 25. You know,
the whole bus just taking turns.
You know, so it was one of the. It's been strange. You know, but at the same time, I understand the reasons behind it and whatnot. But I think it just gives everybody a big boost, you know, to try and make the most of things. And I think, if anything, the majority of players now, I think, realise the value, you know, of. I'm a big stickler for getting guys to training. You know, I hate not getting there, and I want them there 2 nights a week, and I want them getting as fit as they can. Mm-hmm. I think they've realised, you know, there was always guys, and here, when I played, I done exactly the same. Everybody will tell you, but there's guys that always speak in, I can't make it because of this, I can't make it because of that. But sort of finding now after the break, most are sort of going, you know what, I'm not going to take training for granted. I want to get there. Well, I'm allowed out. I'm allowed to train, because that last year and a half was so tough. You know, whenever we were sort of allowed restrictions eased a wee bit, we had guys running up the Prince Charles Way, and there's no pitches. You know, the council hadn't open pitches, and we're running up the hills and street lights and they're going for road runs and doing all these Stravas, and like most people were doing. And I think now they realise, you know what, see if I can get to training, I'm going to be there. I'm going to enjoy it, you know.
I know. I think the main thing is now we have competitive football back. That's what's really getting the players' interest again. I think people were probably the prolonged pre-season last year, the 6-month pre-season we had. That's right. And then if anyone started back for the tournament, that was sort of set competitive, but it wasn't what you're actually looking to aim for generally. So now that they've got proper competitive football back, you're starting to see players' interest perk up again. So you are.
That's what the tournament did, you know, and I thought it was super. Like there's only so many friendlies you can play, you know, and it's difficult. It's one of those ones you roll on, roll off subs. It just doesn't feel you want to try and make it feel proper, but it just doesn't. And the referees, if somebody's hit somebody a bad time, says, you know what, take him off and you can bring him on 10 minutes. And you're going like, doesn't feel right with the tournament. Listen, they give everybody a taste of that competitiveness, and I think that was really good for us because we got everybody bought into it and everybody wanted to be there and wanted to play.
Yeah.
It nearly got there, when it got to the semi-finals and whatever, you were guys getting the training and no, I might not get in the squad here, and it started to get a bit of a taste of that, so it's helped massively. It was super. It was really, really well organized, and it was really welcome after the spell we had off,
So you only have played one game. It was a good win in the Steel and Sons, but you had yesterday called off, we said earlier. So was that due to COVID
it was,
reason?
Listen, we got a call and the club rang me at 7 o'clock on Friday night, and personally I think it's a bit of a late one, but it's one of those things, mate. At the same time, we understand that if there's these kind of cases going on, it's the safety of everybody. The game obviously can't go ahead, but the difficult part is it's all these rule changes. The rule changes are coming into place, I think, tomorrow, with those that are double vaccinated, and you don't have to isolate if you come into contact with positive cases. And different leagues have different rules, and I think we just need, the thing I worry about, listen, I've nothing against Colin Valley who pulled out, and I'm not directing anything towards them guys, because but where does it end? When do you, what happens if you get 3 of these, 3 weeks running? Our guys don't play for a month, and the club are paying for training facilities, and the club are, you're trying to keep guys' morale up and things like that. But at the same time, both clubs that are playing in the fixture have to take the safety end of the player, the players into consideration. So it's tough, but I think there needs to be something set in stone. I don't think the amateur league have. It was just all no problem. We were meant to play them actually away on Tuesday night as well. So both games have been cancelled. But I just think there probably needs to be a procedure in place. Can we put something in place, or the league put something in place where maybe, we can still get the fixtures going, or I don't know. I don't know the answers, mate. I wish I did, but it was frustrating but understandable as well.
See, I've seen the FA have put down their guidelines of they're kind of suggesting, and the amateur league have done the same, that players get double vaccinated, which should hopefully then, if that's the case, cut down on postponements because of the rule changes. But like you said, there's nothing in place, like rule ways, that like a team can just say, and I sound devil's advocate, and it's very early in the season. I'm not saying Colin Valley did this yesterday, but a team at any point this season, if we're starting to struggle, can say, "Oh yeah, COVID cases."
That's right.
That's it. And then how many times are they going to do it?
That's right. And that's a difficult thing. You don't want clubs playing on that. And the other thing about the double vaccination, you go back to the club with, that's fine, all the guys that are double vaccinated that have came into contact with this player train can still play. That club can then still come back and go, well, fine, out of our squad of 14 here for Saturday, 7 are double vaccinated, 7 aren't, so I have only 7 players. So I just don't know. I just hope and pray, mate, that we don't have all this stop-start. I've got a bad feeling about it, but I just hope we can get a lot of fixtures in. And then you look at the autumn and the winter. Is there going to be another lockdown or anything like that? You just don't know, So I just think players and coaches and everybody involved in all forms of sport, not just football, need to get out and enjoy themselves while they can, mate, because you just don't know when it's going to stop again,
See, it's one of them things as well where the leagues themselves, if it's not written in their rules, then they're kind of handcuffed a wee bit, because they can't make a decision if it's not written in the rules, because you're always going to get complaints or appeals or whatever. So, and it can be the other way. It doesn't just have to be a struggling team. It can be a team which is going quite well, but they maybe got a big game coming up and they're missing 1 or 2 even, and that week can just go. So it is. I just hope that for the sake of the league and for the sake of football in general, that people involved in any club who think this is a good idea to cancel a game for whatever reasons, which are not real, realise that it doesn't help anything in the long run, because if we get to May next year and a lot of the league's divisions are unfinished, then and if there is any lockdowns, and that causes even more of a delay, then
sure, look at the
no
argument
promotion,
then.
no relegation again.
That's right. Look at the argument then. If we don't get the league finished, this points per game, and you don't want that scenario coming into it again. But it is, mate. It's a difficult one, but the amateur league normally starts around the start of August. The way it's worked out for us with the 2 games being called off this week, we play in the second round at Stevenson's this Saturday, and then the following Saturday we have the Border Cup against Dundonald. So I looked at the calendar. We now don't start our league season. I don't think there's going to be any midweek games. We now don't start our league season to the start of September. So the first team are meant to start of August, second team start of September. It's now actually looking like the first team won't get a game now until the start of September. So you're already a month behind.
Yeah.
So
I think one thing the league can probably do is they should probably look into rescheduling games and using the midweeks while they have it now. If there's anything now, if there's not meant to be scheduled midweek games and it suits both teams, get it played, get it done now while you have the bright nights.
Yeah, or do the league look at it where the club are allowed a certain amount of COVID postponements, and after that the other team take a 3-0 victory. Everybody's in the same footing. I know it can be frustrating if there's genuine reasons and you're calling it off for genuine cases, but where do you stop? You'll not get your league season finished if we continue to do this.
Exactly. And then the other thing as well, like my personal opinion is, I'm not going to go and ask my players if they are vaccinated or encourage them to do it.
Well,
not because I'm against it, but because it is a personal choice, and we're not there to intrude on players' privacy. If they have a decision and they make a decision to either go one way or the other, that's none of our business, really. It's
exactly the same thing. Our committee came to me with the sort of the minutes from what the league had said, and again, the talk about encourage your players to get vaccinated, but that's not something I want to get into.
I'm not doing it either.
It's not up to me, and it's not up to our club to do that. It's up to the players in question. So, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a strange season, but I just hope we can get. I hope we can get plenty of fixtures in.
I know. I just hope it doesn't have too much controversy. We can, like you say, get the games played. And
there's enough controversy at the end of last season, so
I know.
Hopefully, we don't get another repeat of that.
Well, here, what I want to do now is I want to bring it back to the start of your playing career. Obviously, we've talked a wee bit about your time so far as Mossley coach, but where was it you started playing, and what level were you at when you started playing? Or
I was a bit of a playing in school, obviously, Gary, just throughout primary and high school. But I must say, I was a bit of a late starter when it came to club football. All the mates and whatever that I used to knock about with and run about at the youth club with, and they were always trying to get me to play, and I was like, no, I don't know. It was the team sport thing. At that age, I didn't really like mixing with crowds, and I really didn't start playing club football until I was 14. So I was a late starter. I'm looking at all these, and my son at the minute, like I had him down at the age of 4. But I started off, played a wee bit through primary school at Mossley, and then at Ballyclare High. But I've always said at Ballyclare High wasn't a football school. It's a rugby school. It was frustrating because no matter how much we wanted to play football, there were so many, and a lot of talented footballers went to our school. We were always pushed to play rugby. So one of our teachers who lives locally, Tom Stewart, he was very good in getting the football teams together and organising everything, and he pushed the football side of things. So if it wasn't for him, I think you would have played very little football at school. Whereas you look at LaSalle and all these guys you used to come up against and all these schools cups, unbelievable, playing every single day, playing in the playground, playing after school, playing in PE. We never got to do any of that, but that's really where it started. Me, I joined after a bit of pressure from some of the friends. I sort of thought, what, I'm going to give it a go, and I decided to join up. A lot of my mates were Crumley Colts, so that's where it all started, and joined up there. And listen, at under 14 level, we we had a brilliant team, like full of really good players who went on to have decent careers and playing for some top amateur league clubs, some in all the Irish League football, and done really well for themselves. But that's where it started, mate. And I sort of got the bug from them, and I thought, I'm gonna give this a go. And yeah, stayed at Community Colts for a couple of years, obviously up until sort of played sort of 15, 16 there, and then there was a amalgamation really with Ballyclare Comrades from that point. Carmoney had
Right.
at that stage, so that's where it went. Ended up going to Ballyclare and at the age of 16, and sort of skipped youth team football and went straight into reserve team, and very quickly made my way through into the first team. At 16, 17. So that's basically where it all started, mate.
It's different, but because most people, if they were gonna be starting senior football at their own age, like 16, 17, I would have been playing football from they were about 7 or 8.
I know.
Because you're only really at it a couple of years and like team football anyway, and then all of a sudden you pushed up into reserve football, like men's football.
Yeah, at club level, I must say it was. At that, I think if you remember way back, Gary, you could play. The best of it was you could sign for as many clubs as you wanted to.
Yeah.
I remember playing for Community Colts. I always talk about one day I played for Community Colts in the morning. I think we had like an 8 o'clock kickoff up in the Lisburn Leisure Centre. We played up there. I went then, came home, finished, and one of the local clubs, I think it was Grange Rangers at the time, who Tom Stewart, the teacher from school, had a big association with. He said, "Listen, I need a couple of players. Will you play after your game?" So I went and played for Grange Rangers, and then after that game had finished, Jordy Falloon, who was at Ballyclare Comrades Reserves at that point, I remember him coming to me, and that was my first game, I think, for Ballyclare Reserves. My brother played; he was the captain of the reserve team at the time, and he rang me and says, "Is there any chance you could help us out?" I said, "Gary, I've played 2 games already. I was at Carmoney this morning. I've just played for Grange Rangers." And he says, "No, we're going to the Oval here. We're going to play the Glens." I thought, we're counting me in, like, so away from a third game of the day. And I'll never forget that day, mate. We went up to the Oval, and I thought, that's all right. It's only reserves. It'll be all right. A bunch of kids here, mate. They had a full first team out. Chris, Jordy came over to me before the game, and he says, "I know you've played twice today, but you're starting up front." And I'm looking at the boys coming in. Chris Walker was marking me at the Oval that day. I think Mark Glendenning was playing. Scott Young was playing. All these guys. And I'm going, I've already played 2 games, and I'm coming up against these boys. It was a bit of a baptism of fire, mate. But I always talk about the old reserve teams. Like it's very different now. It's full of kids, and not in a bad way, but you never. I just don't think you get the same experience at reserve team level now than what you used to, because you always come up against guys that were dropping down from Premier League or Championship level, and you were playing against the big guns. And I honestly think Glentoran that day had 8 or 9 first teamers playing. Yeah, you were just sort of going flip, but it gave you that bug, mate. I remember coming in, sitting in the change rooms at the Oval, looking around myself, thinking, I want to play. I want to try and get as high as I can possibly go. This is amazing. I've watched games here, in cup finals, or I've watched them on TV, and I'm going, like, I'm now sitting in this change room, albeit at reserve level, but this is what I want to do, and I want to try and give it a go. So, mate, it was brilliant. And then obviously at Community Colts, I got the chance, which sort of kicked me on a wee bit, to play in the Milk Cup at under 14 level. And it was amazing. We drew a few good clubs, and Blackburn Rovers was one of them in the group stages. And just playing against guys like that, it sort of gave you the hunger to try and kick on and do as best as you could, So I knew at that stage, mate, I sort of questioned myself and thought, why did I wait so long, like, before to start playing, But listen, it was great. You never get those days back. We always, anytime I meet up with the boys or have a chat with them or bump into somebody, and in the supermarket or wherever you are, I'm always having a chat saying, what a team we had, down at Carmoney. And we still talk about those days, and sometimes we still get together. Pre-COVID, I think it was about 12 or 14 of us got together and went out for a night in Belfast, and it's brilliant, mate, just talking about the days you used to have,
It sounds stupid because we're so involved in senior football, but a lot of your fondest memories are from youth football, really. Like you said.
Yeah, I would agree. You always sort of remember the early days, So, mate, no, absolutely brilliant, I must say. And Cumbernauld Colts was still very fond of Cumbernauld, and a few of the lads actually that are involved at Mossley are coaching for Cumbernauld Colts
Well, yeah,
at junior level, So it's great to see that, being taken over from guys that I'm still involved with. And Stephen Best, who was our manager there at the time, he's still my dentist, so he works with the monks now, so I always get a good yarn, and he always keeps me up to date with what's happening and who's playing where and who's not playing anymore. And mate, great. It's like you say, you never get those days back, and I think their fondest memories always are the ones that you remember from early days.
definitely. In terms of like growing in the reserve football, you said earlier as well, like you're coming in, you're playing against men. So was
Yeah.
that why you think you moved quickly from reserve football into the senior football, because you got that experience pretty early and quickly?
I mean, a lot of the guys from Carmoney, there was two or three that sort of, I remember Stuart McLean was sort of the year above us, and he had played for our age group on a few occasions for Carmoney at different tournaments and stuff, and he went away to one of our Spanish trips with us, and he broke into the Ballyclare first team. He played very little reserve team football, and he was always very well talked of and highly thought of. At 17 or maybe 16, he was at that point, and I always remember thinking, I want to do what he's done here. I want to try and get to that first team as quick as I can. So
Yeah.
I skipped youth team football. A lot of the lads went on to play a bit of youth team football first at Ballyclare and under 18s. I honestly think I maybe only ever played 2 or 3 games for the youth team.
Yeah.
I went straight up into Geordie's reserve team. Obviously, my brother was a captain, which helped, and managed to grab a few goals early on. And I think sort of then Paul Byrne was a manager at Ballyclare at the time, ex-Glenavon. And I sort of caught his eye playing for the reserves. I was scoring goals every week and going away to teams like, Coleraine and your Glentorrans and your Portadowns and playing at, great Irish League grounds and stuff like that. And it just went well, mate. I hit the ground running, so that's what started it, and it gave me that bug, and I played probably in and out for a season, 18 months at reserve team level, but at the same time getting opportunities with the first team, and then eventually just broke through and stayed there,
Moving into senior football, then your time at senior football when you were at Ballyclare was a successful period for the club, or?
Yeah, Ballyclare was brilliant. I always, again, we still meet up with some of the boys there and talk about the teams we had. Some really good sides we played in and some not so good sides, and I was part of both. Listen, I remember a couple of teams we played should have probably massively underachieved it, and should have done a lot better than what we did do. But listen, we were involved in a few, we got relegated on a couple of occasions down in the Championship too. It was sort of frustrating and heartbreaking for the club to go down to that level, but to be fair, they rolled their sleeves up and got back up again and back in the Championship. And Ballyclare at one stage was sort of back and forward, between the two leagues. And but listen, there were some really good sides as well. I think the side that went down, Jamesy had, I had left at that stage, but the side that Jamesy had after getting relegated, they bounced straight back up again, straight back into Championship level. I think they won the league the following year. Some cracking players, Michael Smith, now in Northern Ireland, he was one that broke through, and I remember him coming through at that age, and phenomenal, mate. Again, a kid that came in at 16, I think he was, straight from youth team, didn't play much reserves, straight into first, and you knew Michael was going to be an unbelievable talent. Like, the guy was absolutely superb. So how it went for him, straight to Ballymena. He ended up kicking on, and look where he is now, and he's had a great career, so listen, Ballyclare, brilliant, fond memories, love the place. Obviously still really big connections with Ballyclare, and I would love to watch them more, on occasions when we're playing at home. If I can get away and once our game's finished and crack on, I'll speed up and try and watch the last 15-20 minutes of their games. So, but man, absolutely brilliant. Love the time there, and a few other clubs that I played at,
What was it that brought your time at Ballyclare to an end then? Was it after a relegation you decided to move on, or?
I think, one of the times, listen, it's not that at that stage you're thinking, I'm too good for Championship 2, but I just felt I had the chance on a few occasions to move from Ballyclare to at one stage, I remember speaking to Portadown, and they were in the Premier League, and Ronnie McFall was the manager there, and I was sort of thinking to myself, like, you always question some of the decisions, and I stayed at Ballyclare at that stage, but sometimes you sort of say to yourself, what if, and why didn't it? A lot of players at that stage were very loyal to Ballyclare, not just myself. There were some really good players that could have kicked on and played at a higher level, and probably were loyal to Ballyclare and stayed there longer than they maybe should have. But yeah, I remember one stage going down in the Championship too, and I thought, no, not that I was part of the team that got relegated, so it wasn't. I'm not gonna. I just felt that I wanted to play higher, and I wanted to see how far I could go. So yeah, at one stage relegation was one of those moves. I had a few spells at Ballyclare, but it's like I say, some were really good, some successful teams, and just some not so good, mate.
So you always, your few spells at Ballyclare meant you'd always kept going back then. It was always a club that you held close to your heart.
Yeah, it was one, again, like I said earlier, it was one of them. There on occasions you could sign. I remember at one stage, my brother, he's currently the manager of Ballinger Old Boys, and I remember back then when you could sign for a few different clubs, Ballyclare and Ballinger sort of amalgamated, and sort of Ballinger then shared Dixon Park. Came in sort of as the reserve team. I think it was a bit of a money-saving exercise as well in Ballyclare's part, which is totally understandable. So they sort of amalgamated, and I was able to play for both, so it was great. We were playing for Ballinger once, maybe on a Friday night, and going playing for Ballyclare on a Saturday. But listen, I was always really fond of Ballyclare, still am, and always will be, but I went back on a few occasions. It always felt like home, mate. It really did. But of course, there's that point, and I still talk to some of my best mates about it that played in those teams with me. There's always that what if, why didn't they go for that opportunity, or why did? So that's the reason. On a couple of occasions, I decided to move on and see if I could bring, go even further, or see how far I could go.
Yeah, and then any time you left, was there any periods of success at other clubs you remember fondly, or?
I think, listen, I found it difficult whenever, I went to Larne. Tommy Kincaid was manager of Larne. I played with Tommy on a few occasions. Tommy was one of these managers you just loved to follow about, and if he came knocking, you found it hard to say no to him. Loved Tommy as a manager, and equally James E. Kirk at Ballyclare, two great football men and guys that you wanted to play for, so Larne was good, maybe not so successful in terms of me and scoring many goals, but I found it hard to break into the team. I just found Larne were always that wee bit, always sort of hovered above Ballyclare at that point, and I found it was a wee bit of a step up. They demanded a wee bit more from you. I wasn't the fittest. I always struggled with my fitness, mate. I always did. I always played, and again, it's one of those things I always think back, why didn't I get myself that wee bit fitter? But Larne, we got promoted. I always remember getting promoted at the end of that season. We went down to Bangor. We played at Clandy, and it was between us and Bangor that day as to who got promoted. So it was winner takes all. I think a draw did us, but Bangor had to win the game. And I think we drew one each. Mark Dixon, who made absolutely phenomenal. But Mark scored that day. I think Bangor equalised late on, and we held on, and we got promoted. So listen, I always remember that party, going back to Imber Park. It's not the Imber Park we know now, but going back into the bar. I think we spent all night in there, mate, and that was brilliant, And again, I had a spell at Dungannon for a while, back in 2007. Now I had left the club halfway through the season, but really good, fond memories of that. And that year, the club ended up getting to the Irish Cup final, beating penalties by Linfield. So there was some really fond memories, mate. There definitely was. It was some successful ones, some not so successful, but definitely short periods at Larne and short periods at Dungannon, but always remember them well,
Yeah. What was it brought your career to end then? Because you're still very young as a coach.
Yeah, it was a tough one, mate. I was playing, then I sort of took a step back from Irish League, and my brother was sort of at me about rejoining Ballinger, and like I say, I was able to play for them on a few occasions. while signed for other clubs. But once the rules changed, you can only sign for one club. I sort of thought, why not just drop down? They were in the Ballymena League and still are. It was competitive enough league, but I wanted this at that stage, I was starting to get fed up with, maybe not appearing as much, and not starting games at Irish League level. And people were in my ear saying, you're wasting your time. If you're not going to get proper run-outs, you either need to drop down a level or you need to come and play and enjoy football. I wasn't enjoying football at that point. So I sort of took a bit of a back step, mate, and I thought I'll go and play for Ballinger. And I loved it, mate. I absolutely love Ballinger. And obviously still really big connections and very good friends with everybody. But I think at that point, I remember getting a bad injury playing for Gary, and I couldn't run. There was a tear. There was some sort of, it's like a tear. I still have it to this day, mate, because I remember, I say sprinting, guys will tell you I couldn't sprint very fast, but I was trying my best. But I remember just something popping one day playing at home, and it wasn't right, and it was right up in the groin, and I just couldn't, no matter how many weeks rest I gave it, it just wasn't right. It was keeping me up at night, and I was popping painkillers, and nothing would fix it. So eventually went and got scanned and done all these things, and it ended up being a tear of the labrum in the hip. So it required surgery, which freaked me out a bit because I'd never really at that point had any surgery. I suppose it's not until you sort of told you need to go under the knife, you're going, I've never had this before. It was a bit of a strange one, but I knew if I was going to continue to play, I needed to get it done. And again, I still talk about it to this day. I could have very easily went, no, I didn't fancy it at all. I don't like the idea of getting in and getting opened up, But I remember the day getting in, and there's a good story I love behind it, but I went in anyway and needed to get it fixed. So thankfully I had the private medical insurance. I got seen pretty quickly up at the Ulster Independent Clinic in Belfast, and just pre-op they wanted to do a few checks, and I remember the guy coming in and saying, listen, we're going to take you down shortly, and I said that's fine, and the nerves started kicking in. I thought, here we go. But he came up with a few pre-op checks, and I remember him sort of just coming in and saying, do you mind if I have a wee listen into your heart and take your pulse and your blood pressure? And I said, that's fine. He said, just all standard stuff. So he got to the stage, he was listening into the heart, and he says to me, what medication do you take? And I was like, I don't really take any medication, and he says, what do you take for your heart though? I always remember this sort of pause, and I went, what do you mean? And he says, you've got a really bad heart murmur. And he says, like, what, you obviously know about it. What do you take for it? And I says, I know nothing about it. And at that point, I sort of looked and said, are you being serious? And he was like, I'm not messing with things like this, Yeah. So, yeah, mate, it ended up, listen, he sort of said, don't panic. We'll get your operation done, and then we'll get you looked at afterwards. But once I went down get the anesthetic and get put out and I took some sort of reaction to it, and to this day I still don't know what that reaction was, but it was pretty dangerous, and they woke me up and just said, no, we're not doing your operation and we need you to see a cardiologist. So very quickly went and seen a cardiologist, diagnosed with a condition called aortic stenosis, which is a blocked aortic valve. And yeah, mate, that was it. It was very difficult, I must say. I still struggle with it, in terms of dealing with not being able to play. And I've never ever thought, with starting late at 14 years of age, I'm always telling myself I'll go to 40 and I'll drop down and I'll play to 45 or at lower league levels, and to be playing on a Saturday one day and then the next week told you'll never kick a ball again it was like a dagger to the heart, mate. It was very, very difficult to deal with. But I totally understood that I couldn't do it. But the cardiologist had a look and he says, Ronnie, listen, you've been so lucky, and I think you've had this condition from birth. I think you've probably had it all along and things have just got worse. He said, but you're very lucky. He said, to play at the level you played at and to play at that intensity for so long, he said, you could have very easily been one of these guys that just dropped and never got up again. So
it just goes to show, if you'd never decided to even go under the knife and get the operation on your hip,
exactly. And that's
you might never have known. And
that's something we talk about. I still talk to my wife to this day, and my wife's a Christian, and she would still say to me, she says, I don't care what anybody says, somebody was looking after you that day, because in normal circumstances, if I had been told, listen, you're coming in for an operation, I'd have went, no chance, no way. But I always remember that day getting in, and I was like, fine, I was grand about it, and I was like, no problem. And looking back and thinking, like, it was strange, just went in. But yeah, it's like you say, they found it, and I was ever so thankful. I must admit, mate, the hospital were absolutely brilliant. They were so thorough, and I got diagnosed very quickly. And yeah, but at the same time, Gary, it's like I say to friends, if I had found it, I'm glad I got away with it for so long.
Yeah.
Because if you had found it at 10 years of age, I would never ever have been involved in football.
Yeah.
So while people say, I can feel bad for you or you had to stop, I also in a way count my blessings, mate, because I had, listen, not an amazing career, but a career that I really enjoyed, and
people enjoy football.
So many friends, through playing, and I sort of look back at it and say, well, do you know what? I was so lucky to get through those years, and being told at that stage that, you could have been told this at 10 or 11 and you would have never kicked the ball, So, but mate, going on the hospital, I'll give you a good one. I don't mind taking the mickey out of myself, but when I went in, I'd never been in, like I say, for an operation. So I remember getting into the hospital, and it was one of these, like, ultra independent private. And I thought, this is brilliant. This place is it's like a hotel in here. It was like the Hilton Hotel. So I'm in my own room, and flat screen up on the wall, and the wife's ringing, and I'm talking away, going, you want to see this place? Like, it's unbelievable, and your own room and whatever. And she was like, that's class. And when you go on for your operation, she said, they've come in there and says they'll call for me shortly. So I remember the doctor coming in, and they threw down this sort of the gowns, in the plastic, and it was all sealed, and he threw it down. He said, listen, get yourself changed in an hour. And he says, we'll come back up and get you. And I was like, right, that's dead on. And the nerves kicked in a wee bit, and I thought, right. So rang the wife back, was chatting to her, and said, listen, I'm going to have to go. I have to get ready. They told me they're calling me here at 11 o'clock, and it's 1:45, so I'm going to get changed. So that's fine. So came off the phone, opened up this stuff, and in the hospital, everybody, all the doctors and nurses were running about, all the covering their hair and all this, just for cleanliness, obviously, and all the hair nets on and stuff like that. Right, so I'm pulling this thing out, and I'm looking at it going, what is this, So there was a guy and a couple of other things I'm putting on. This other thing comes out, that I'm looking at it going, it must be a hairnet. They're all running about in hairnets. Am I having to put this on? So I thought, it's obviously just due to cleanliness and whatever and hygiene, I'll have to fire this on. So fired it on over the head, man. I'm sitting there in the bed waiting, and I just knew I didn't feel comfortable. I was thinking, what? So the nurse, mate, I got to be knocking at the door a couple of minutes later, and the nurse came in, and I swear, mate, she just burst out laughing, and she went, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? She said, what are you doing with that in your head? And I said, is that not a hair? Am I not to wear that to go down? And she goes, and she says, love, they're boxers. She says, we put you on to cover up your dignity, and we cut them off whenever you're going through your operation. So, mate, I'm sitting there with a pair of knickers over my head. Swear, I never ever lived it down. See, leaving the hospital, and I know obviously I got bad news that day, but leaving the hospital, mate, I walked through the corridors, and the amount of doctors went, are you the guy that put the thing in your head? I was going, nightmare, mate. So I've never ever lived it down. Like, unbelievable.
You can tell you weren't experienced at surgery, so
you have no idea, never again. But here, if it ever happens again, God forbid, I'll know what to do with them.
Aye, definitely. Mate, so that was you then retired. And what age were you when you had to retire from playing?
God, what am I now? 38. God, mate, you're going early 30s, like.
Yeah, so it's very young at that point. Then, did you take a break altogether from football, or did you go straight into coaching, or?
I sort of, I didn't know what. My head was all over the place, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And like I say, even the coaching side of things, you need to be careful with that, because I'm not allowed to do anything in terms of that would get, put any strain or anything on the heart and things like that. So it wasn't something that I remember toying with the idea when I was told about even doing nets. I'd done it through any time a goalkeeper was injured, throughout whoever in my career, whoever I played with, I jump in nets, I do net. And listen, I was right and good at it, and I always would be the first to say, right, or if some goalkeeper sent off, I'm in nets, I'm doing it, And I remember at one point going and speaking to somebody and saying, like, you don't really do an awful lot of running. Like, surely I could maybe do that. But listen, mate, it wasn't to be. I was told no, end of, you're not doing anything, and that's what it was. So it didn't. I just took a break, and I thought to myself, I'll go and watch, and I went to watch a lot of Irish League, and you know, probably things you don't get to do whenever you play. I took in games, but I got a phone call then, obviously from Stephen Hughes, who was manager at Ballyclare with Eddie Hill at the time, and it came out of the blue. I didn't expect it, and he just phoned and he said, "Ronnie, listen, the position of Ballyclare reserves managers came up, and what do you think?" And it was a no-brainer, mate. I just sort of thought, right, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to have to go into this side of things. If I'm not allowed to do anything physically, then I want to try and. It's the next best thing for me, mate. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that I felt that I wanted to get into and keep the interest. And I'm so glad I did, because it was very difficult at that point, and it was a really tough time at that stage, mate. But yeah, listen, Ballyclare I think I did a year there, and we had a really good squad. Just missed out narrowly on winning the league. I think Newington ended up winning the league that year by a point. And then the opportunity came up. My brother had left Ballymuir at the time. The opportunity came up to manage Ballymuir, and I ended up taking that on and left Ballyclare. So I've enjoyed it, mate, and I must say, Mossley it's been really, really good over the last number of seasons. I know we've had a really difficult year and a half, but the club's brilliant. Really great group we've got together, and I talked about, so many changes that we've made, and I could honestly hand on heart say that I think over the last 18 months, I would say we've released 60 players.
Yeah.
I came in and I remember saying, right, give me a list of guys that's there. Let me see, how can we not get 2 teams out? How many players have we got registered? And Mossley at that stage had 75 registered players. And we couldn't get 2 teams out on a Saturday when I first came in, and I just thought, no, I don't want guys signed for the sake of being on a form. I don't want it to be a club where guys just sort of don't show their face for 3 months and then say, right, here, I'll play on Saturday. That's a pub team mentality for me, so I wanted to change it. And I must say, it was difficult. I think the difficulty was, Mossley always had a big part for me, very fond of Mossley. I grew up in Mossley, which was one of the things that sort of, my dad was a big Mossley man, played at Mossley, and I lost my dad at the age of 15, and I always remember thinking whenever Mossley first came to me, and I thought, that would be and my brother says the same thing, he says that would be an amazing job for you to take. But I just felt the first time they asked, it wasn't right. My head wasn't in the right place, and I was still trying to deal with the issues that I had in terms of health. And I sort of said to the club when they approached me, no, just I don't think it's right. But I'm glad, mate, they came back about a year later. And I'm so glad they did, because we've made an awful lot of changes there. And like I say, we've a completely new squad, and it's going really well at the minute,
Yeah, because like you said as well, like you were kind of having problems a junior team has, like an intermediate club.
Absolutely.
And that shouldn't be happening in an intermediate club. And obviously, when I spoke to you the night you played Rosario and said that I didn't recognise any players in your team, and we were probably one of the last competitive games Mossley had played before you come in, my own club, in the Clarence Cup, and we went down and beat that Mossley side 5-1 that day, a 2AA team, a junior team.
Yeah.
And when I looked, I was like, it's a completely different team. There was obviously a lot of changes in.
I think, and again, like we said earlier, even the team you've seen that night at Rosario, only a short months, again, you'd probably not recognise half the team we have in now. It's changed that quickly. But I think the difficulty with Mossley was, I always remember watching Mossley as a boy and going over, and it was only a 5-minute walk from our house. And like I said, we had big connections there, and I used to go and watch them. They won the league. I remember as a kid going and travelling everywhere with them, and they won, I think, was it 2C, I think, when I was watching them, they were in, and I remember them winning the league. And big Gary Campbell did nets for Mossley at that stage, and he was an amazing character. And Big Soupy was
just a big guy with baldy head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Big Soupy was, he was part of our Comedy Colts group at one stage. He came on a few trips with us, and everybody loved him. And big gentle giant, and Soupy won a lot of things with Mossley, and he was a massive character. And he ended up obviously taking the manager's position, and he got them promoted from 1C up into 1B, which was an amazing feat. But just again, very suddenly, unfortunately, Soupy passed away, and it was very unexpected. And I think that was another big part of the reason I sort of thought, no, do you know what? I'm taking this job. I wanted to do it for him as much as anybody else. And, me and Soupy would have chatted an awful lot, like he did with a lot of people, but I still find myself going to this day going through my messages, and I still have messages from him that he's talking about players and wanting to get preseason games sorted when it was at Ballyclare Reserves, and let's organise this. And he used to text me saying, "Have you heard of this player? What's he like? Is he a kipper?" And that's the way he get on. And we used to chat about it all the time. And I still to this day find myself, and he used to give me advice. And starting off in management, he used to send me stuff, and he used to say, "Listen, Soupy, this has happened, that's happened, it's a nightmare." And he says, "Ronnie, take it from me, do this or do that or do whatever." And I still to this day find myself going through his messages sometimes if I need that wee bit of inspiration or what would Soupy do. I still find myself going on to the messages and reading them, and sort of gives me a kick up the arse and saying, "You know what, I'm doing this and going with it, and I'm sticking with it." So it's a big part of the reasons the way I took it. I think Mossley lost their way, mate, for a couple of years, and understandably so. It was such a shock to everybody, and he really was a manager that everybody played for. He got the best out of everybody, and Mossley suffered for 2 or 3 years when he passed. So I've took it on board, and I thought to myself, you know what, I want to do him justice, and I want to try and do something for him. And everything I do, mate, and I speak to the coaches about it as well, I try and just do my best, and I want to get the best possible team. I would love to get out of 1B for him, as much as anybody else. It would be massive. And yeah, listen, we've signed some really, really good players, and I've had to use that bit of Irish League sort of connection that I have, and it's helped massively. It really has. And even phoning guys, whether it be guys that I've played with that are now up in the Premier League, and I would phone a lot of guys that maybe have played up in different parts of the country and saying, "Do you know anybody here?" Actually, I know guys from Belfast that are down there at the minute not playing for anybody. So I've had to use all these connections to get, but listen, mate, we've got a really, really good group there together, and some smashing players, and I'm really, really looking forward to the season ahead,
Yeah, it seemed that you signed like Timmy Adamson.
Yeah.
Who's a massive signing for Mossley.
Yeah.
I know he got injured playing in the semi-final of the tournament. Is he back now playing? And
yeah, Timmy's always sort of had a problem over the last wee while with his hamstring, and he's just got that wee bit of weakness in it. But I see, man, like at Timmy's age, Timmy's 38 years of age, and he runs about. He is as fit as he has ever been. We've made him captain of the club this year. It was a no-brainer for me. The guy's phenomenal. He'll come in and he'll talk to players, and he'll be the first one over to shake somebody's hand in the change room as soon as the new guy comes through the door. He'll be texting people, without me knowing about it. He'll be texting welcoming them to the club and asking, do they want to go for a coffee? And it's just unbelievable. He's just a pro, and that's all you could say about Timmy. He's a pro, and he brought the way he played football his whole career. He's brought that right through. And I played with Timmy at the high school, and I played with Timmy at Comedy Colts, and it's amazing to be even his manager at this stage. And I never ever thought that would ever happen. You never would, but. Listen, I'm so lucky, and not just Timmy. There's some unbelievable guys that we've signed this year, and we really have unearthed some gems. Like there's a few lads that are from up Derry direction that we got lucky with, and they've been working in Belfast, and sort of one of the guys sort of gave me a bit of a tip and said, "Listen, he's not playing at the minute. Get a word with him and whatever." Ended up there was 3 of the guys, and all living in the same house, mate, and all phenomenal footballers in their own right. All different, play different positions and whatever. But they've been absolutely superb since they've come in. And again, we've made a few signings recently. There's also guys that have been there. Kyle Crowe has been at the club for a long, long time. He has been wanted by so many, and I've no doubt, him included, and I would say at least 4 or 5 of the guys we have could play at championship level even now.
Yeah.
I've no doubt. Our goalkeeper was a big, massive issue for Mossley over the last number of years. There was times you were throwing centre halves and nets, and you can't do it, mate. You know what it's like. You can't do it at that level. But we've signed Daniel McWilliams, who's a Larne guy, was at Larne, and I think he was at Derryaki for a spell. He has been absolutely phenomenal. I think he played against Ballyclare in pre-season for us. We were beat 2-0. If it hadn't been for Daniel, honestly, could have been 10 or 12. Yeah. He was absolutely phenomenal. So we've a great group. We've guys there, and again, last couple of signings, I sort of went in. I felt we needed a couple of centre halves. We brought in Lee Rush and Aaron Holland, both massive Irish League experience as well. So, mate, really excited, honestly, for the guys that's there. I'm really excited with the squad that we have, and I just can't wait to get going properly, which is why Saturday was such a big disappointment for us.
Yeah. I've seen the same Lee, and I know Lee as well. He has a lot of experience, and then there's probably an under the radar signing you've signed. We Seb.
Mate, huge, another big one. I must say, listen, Seb was playing away for the last number of years. I've known about Seb for years before I started managing, and I always remember when I was up in the soccer shed in Ballyclare. Big Stephen Heron, who owns the soccer shed, always used to say, have you seen him playing? And I'm like, no. He says, watch him. He is unbelievable. And sort of watching him playing. I don't think at that point he was playing for anybody. He was, just floating around. He ended up signing for third Ballyclare, and he stayed there for the last 2 or 3 seasons. And to prefer, listen, they've always attracted some really good players. And I understand, and it was a difficult one because, listen, I know a lot of the guys there. And I made a few phone calls prior to it, and they were saying, listen, Seb has been asked to go different places at different stages, and he's very loyal to third Ballyclare. He doesn't want to leave there. And honestly, I sat on it for a year. The previous season, just before COVID, called everything off. I had got all his information. I thought, I'm going to give third Ballyclare a ring and speak to them here and see what. I never got around it. So another year went past. It came back up, and I thought to myself, I can't let this opportunity go. I went to watch him. He was superb, and I thought, it was like another Kevin Amuniki, and obviously we'll go into that one as well. But just looking at him, I just thought, like, this guy is a finisher. I'm being a front man myself, man. I know a front man that will score goals, and when I seen him, I thought, I have to do as much as I can to get this guy at our club. So listen, I understand, no doubt, third Ballyclare we're really sad to see him go, because he's been brilliant for them, and he's won leagues there with them. I think they maybe get 2 promotions in a row, and so he'll be a big miss, obviously, for them. But it's football, mate. It's like I say, I lose players to clubs above me, and hopefully those guys, hopefully they can bring somebody in that'll do the business, and they'll keep ticking along, because I hate it when clubs come knocking, and I wouldn't be one of these managers. So if a club comes knocking, well, no, I'm going to ignore that, or I'm not going to tell them. I want my players to kick on, and I've told them that. If there's guys there that can play at championship level, I want to get them there. I take pride in getting them and helping them to that level. Although it'll weaken your team, I just feel that you've done your job. A lot of people seem to think that you're in this game. Of course, you're in it to win trophies and you're in it to win games, but I would like to sort of go, well, do you know what? See him, and him. I helped him get there. I think that's part of the coaching and management side of things, and I think you can be proud of those kind of things. So I'll do my best I've said to the guys, and I do think, Gary, at this level, a lot of it, yourself, a lot of it's commitment and belief, and application. There's guys playing at amateur league level that'll go and rip up the championship, or could take the Premier League level, no problem. But it's that confidence and that commitment and getting there and believing in yourself and just giving it that wee bit extra, So listen, he's been a huge signing. There's been so many, but he's already. I mean, he's lit up the last 4 or 5 games for us, and he's winning games for us that out of nothing. He's one of these players where, I mean, against Bryansburn, we should have been out of sight. It was 1-0 with 5 minutes to go. They equalised, couldn't believe it. I thought, we're going to penalty kicks here. And out of nothing, the ball came up the left wing. He skipped past 2 or 3, threw a dummy, weaker foot, bang, into the far corner off the post, like an absolute bullet. And that's what he does. He's done that 2 or 3 times in pre-season. He wins a game out of nowhere. And I think that's going to be massive for us this season,
See, we my club forward, we played third Ballyclare in a pre-season friendly last year. Marty had asked me for a friendly, and they come up to play us. And 20 minutes in the game, he quickly realised that we had a makeshift centre half and makeshift left back on, and he just hung out to the right, and he terrorised them two for the first 45 minutes. I was like, who the frig is this kid, and why is he playing at this level? He proper tortured us. And then when I seen you boys had signed him, I was like, that's the type of signing that people who are looking to see what sort of signings clubs are making probably don't even recognise. And they'll get to know pretty quickly, because people will look for big names coming down. But like you said earlier, you can unearth gems as well. And players coming from lower levels can do that, so they can.
Absolutely. And listen, third Ballyclare deserve a lot of credit too, mate. To keep staying at that level and winning trophies, Marty deserves a massive pat in the back, because he's brought him in, he's won trophies with him. And not just Seb, there's a lot of players there that have helped as well. Third Ballyclare get to where they've been, and they've had a really successful period as well. But I agree, mate. I just knew, and I've no doubt Seb could, he was at Ballyclare for a while, and I just think at that stage Ballyclare felt that he maybe wasn't ready. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm not going to argue with it because I have him now, So, but yeah, mate, there's players out there. I think that's one thing that I've never really had the opportunity to do. But we have over the last number of months started to go and watch teams, and even watch our next opponents. We'll have them watched, not on every occasion, but it seems a wee bit, that's a bit, Premier League level or whatever, but I don't think it is. I think at times you need to do that, and we went and watched a few clubs, and it's helped us massively. And there's been guys who we've seen and went, you know what, I came down to watch him, and I actually see number 4 and number 6. I want their number. I want to speak to the manager and find out who they are. I want to try and sell our club to them. That's where you're going to get your players. Players won't come and knock your door, mate. They won't. The odd one might, but you need to be busy, and you need to be on the ball 24/7 to get these guys in.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing ever. We're all amateur coaches, but if you want to be successful, sometimes you have to put that bit more effort and time in. And it's very hard to do because we all have full-time jobs, but being able to, and you said there as well, maybe some people think that's a wee bit too much, but if you can go and watch another team and your players see the effort you've put in, you and your coaches have put in to do that, and they have belief in the instructions you're giving them because you've told them, look, I've seen this team play. I know what they're going to do. I know what they're going to set up. It gives you a massive advantage going into any game.
It does, mate. It helps massively. And, it's one of these ones. It's like you say, you're looking at, even the likes of Colin Valley, over the last number of years, Mossley and Colin Valley have always been down at the bottom of the league and always really struggled. But, you look at Colin Valley coming in, they've changed an awful lot over the last few months. So guys get in that maybe haven't seen that. Even our guys are maybe going in going, right, Colin Valley, they've struggled, and vice versa. There's maybe guys at Colin Valley looking going, Mossley have been down the bottom of that league for the last couple of years. This should be a handy enough weekend. And I remember one of my first games for Mossley as assistant manager when I went in to help Glenn McCrum initially. We went down there and I think they beat us 5 or 6. They absolutely battered us. And, I sort of say to the players this year, I want to use that to our advantage. I'm not going to say we're going to do this, we're going to do that, or we're going to win leagues, or we're going to win cups. I want to improve over what Mossley have done over the last number of years. Mossley have been down fighting relegation. We should have been relegated on a couple of occasions. COVID saved us last year from being relegated into 1C. I just want to improve. And the club are very accepting of that. I'm not going to come and say to the club, you know what, I'm going to win 1B this year. I'm going to do better than we done last year. I know I will. We won't be fighting relegation. But if that takes us on to 4th, great. If it takes us to 3rd, great. If it takes us into 2nd or 1st, then happy days. We'll take it all day. But, one game at a time, and it's an old cliche, but I'm honestly really looking forward to this year with the guys we brought in and the changes we've made.
Yeah, well, it's you're being realistic in terms of where the club was before, even though your whole team has changed. You have to kind of be realistic because you can come in and say too much and then it can blow
You
up your
can.
face.
It's a banana skin, then, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
You're
exactly.
going, I'm going to win this and I'm going to win that, and you're ending up fighting relegation. You're going, what was that about?
Yeah,
So no, mate. Listen, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think the guys realise. I'm always reminding them about, I remember when we played at Ballinger, some of the sides that we had, and yeah, you know, even Exeter done something similar when my brother was in charge, and to what I'm trying to do at Mossley. They got a group of lads together that had a bit of Irish League experience and had been there and done it and won trophies, and we got so lucky in a way. And Gary will tell you that himself. We got guys that were maybe coming towards the end of their career, but still good enough to do it at that level. And we had an unbelievable team. And I feel that Mossley has a wee bit of that same feel about it this year. Just got guys at the right time. There's also a lot of young guys in there with a nice blend of youth and experience. And yeah, I'm just excited, and that's what I'm saying. I just really hope this season gets going properly because, if it shuts down again or whatever, you just never know what's going to happen to some players in your squad and whatever. So while we're looking healthy, I can't wait to get going.
So the long-term ambitions to get into 1B, but you're just not putting a time frame on it. Just progress and improve, and whenever that is, that is.
Yeah, listen, I think it's one of those things where, I would love. I wanna get out of 1B as quick as I possibly can. It's like I said from the day I came in. You're only 2 steps from Premier level, but at the same time, mate, you're 2 steps from 2A. So depending on what way you want to look at it or what players you want to sign, that determines what's going to happen. So for me, mate, I want to get out of 1B. 1B is a great league. It's really competitive this year. Really, really tough to get out of. But the guys are capable, and there's nobody in that league. If you'd asked me 18 months ago with, the squad we had at Mossley, and that's nothing against the guys that were there, they always came 100%, and I can't knock any of them. And I honestly have never, it's one of the only clubs I've been at where I could honestly say I've never really had any major issues with any players. Everybody has been a class act. From the day I've come in, they've supported me. They've understood the direction the club wanted to go in and what way I wanted to bring it. There's a few guys, no doubt, have went, his head's away here. There's no way like this is. But listen, we've done nothing yet, Gary. There's no point in me saying we've done this and we've done that. We haven't done anything. But I think the feel about the place at the minute is where I wanted it to be. And I just think with the way things are at the minute, we should. There's nobody in our league I'm looking at going, I don't want to play them.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them now, whereas 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I'm looking going, we're in for a rough afternoon here.
Yeah.
And we were getting beat 8, 9, 10, and it's soul destroying. It's soul destroying for me, soul destroying for the coaches, soul destroying for the players.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at our league now going, can't wait to play them, and I really can't wait to play these boys. So it bodes well, mate, for a good season, hopefully ahead.
So we're now going to move on to the fun part where you get to name your five-a-side team, coached or players. It can be fun, but it can also be you're going to get a couple of phone calls over the next couple of days. Why was I not your team? Why was I not involved?
Five-a-side team. Right. Right. Okay. Do you include yourself in that, Gary?
You can, mate, but it would be a first.
Right. Okay. Right. Who am I going with? Five-a-side team in nets. Played or coached?
Yep. We'll join it up.
Right. Played or coached. I would go with in nets. I would probably say there's been a few good ones, but I think Andy McDonald gets the nod. Andy McDonald, ex-Larne, played with him at Ballyclare, made class act. unbelievable. He was at Lisburn Distillery for a long time as well. But anybody that knows Andy, character, unbelievable. Very much would remind me very much of what Big Soupy was like, you know.
Yeah.
Just the heart and soul of everything, no matter what you did. But what a goalkeeper. What a goalkeeper. He's won many things, and I think anybody that's played with him would agree. Like he was fantastic. So I think Andy McDonald would probably be the one that would jump in buckets. Defenders. Who asked this question, by the way? Who put me on the spot?
No, this is just one of mine. It started off as best player you've ever played with or coached, and then it just became people couldn't name one, so I started doing 5.
Right. Well, I would probably have to go with. It'll be a controversial one, but I have to go with a big brother, I think. Gary was absolutely, listen, he'll tell you himself, there wasn't much football in him, like, but back in the day, centre half, ridiculous. You know, never, I don't think I ever seen him miss a header in my life. You know, anything came up in that era, just a good old fashioned centre half, never missed anything, would hit a brick wall. I would probably go with a brother. I would go with Gary.
See, that's another thing from later. Gary Bell, Dinger Bell asked, "Would you sign your brother if he was still playing?"
Well, it depends what Gary's asking on my signing. But in his heyday, like to be fair, Gary spent a while at Ballyclare and had a few first team appearances with them as well. Captained the reserves for a long time, and if we're getting a prime Gary, I would take him all day long. There's no doubt. Hopefully he doesn't watch this. I don't want him knowing that, like, but all day long, mate, no doubt. I think the other one I have to go with is I would probably have to go with my big mate Andy Forsyth. Played with him a long time. Andy played at junior international level for Harry McConkey. Was a captain, you know, for them for a long time. Captain Ballyclare. Had a wee short spell at Glenavon, which I always take the mickey out of him for. I think he lasted 24 hours and came back again. He was one of these boomerangs for Ballyclare as well. But he spent a long time at Bangor. But listen, smashing footballer, great lad. I think part of your team, and even picking a five-a-side team, it's not just the players, Gary, it's a change room too.
Yeah.
You know, Andy was a class act. We've been head-to-head many a times, I think, with 3 punches and on occasions, but it's the way it was. It was a will to win, you know, and we'll always talk about some of the arguments we had in the changing room. But Andy was a class act. He still has it. It frustrates me. I've been at him about Mossley 100 times, but he's coaching at Green Island now, and his young lads are playing football, and you know he's got these commitments. So I've no doubt he would be another one. A couple of attacking players, maybe midfield. Midfield, I'm going to go with Stuart Gilbreth, Ethan's dad. He was an absolute animal. Made again, he captained Ballyclare for a long time and played in some of the really successful teams. But he would go through a brick wall. Just one of these guys that if you needed to get the team going, he would just go through people. That's what he did. You know, his game was just tackling, just emptying people, giving the ball to somebody else to let them do the damage. And he was a class act. He really was. So I would say he would be one that I would pick. And then last off, I have to go with a front man. God, there's a lot of left out there. But a front man, God, there's so many. I think
you can still name yourself. I was only joking earlier. So.
No. I think I'm going. God, mate, there's a few that I pick, but I would go with. I probably have to go with Mark Dixon at Larne. Class act. Quality. Mark, you know what he did. You know, at all levels, mate. Championship level, he was phenomenal. He scored a ridiculous amount of goals. You know, obviously Big Davey signed him for the Blues, and he lit it up there too. Yeah. Flip me, you could pick any amount. Big Timmy Adamson obviously would be up there too. There's so many, but I would say that's the five I would go with. That's the five I would go with.
It's a strong
Maybe
team.
me as a strong sub coming on, mate. If I had a decent heart valve to use, but no, listen, that you could pick 25-a-side teams, mate. You really could, But some great players are.
And in terms of, we spoke earlier about some of your signings. I got asked a question by Stephen McKee about your signing in Smith's Toy Store. You made a signing in Smith's Toy Store once.
Unbelievable. Made really random. Went in. Dylan, the young lad, must have been. Oh, he must have been what? 7 or 8 years of age, and we were driving down past the valley, and when he went into one, and he started, I want to go into the toy shop, and I'm going, I'm not going in, I want to go. And I knew this was 40, 50 quid in my head, going, he doesn't pick cheap stuff here, and I was going, I'm not going in. He said, I want to go. So the missus says, listen, just go in and have a look around, get him something. He's me right.
Yeah.
Pulled into this toy shop, and I bumped into one of the guys he used to go to school with. Neil, and he came over and I was chatting to him, and he just said to me, listen, he says, what are you doing with yourself and how's things? And so I had a bit of a catch up with him. He said, are you still involved in football? I says, yes, I am. I told him about the issue I had with the heart, and I had to stop playing and just start managing. He says, right. He says, I have a guy that works for me here, says that he was meant to be a really good footballer. And I says, right. And we'd see if anybody gives me a sniff of a really good footballer, I have them text within half an hour. That's just the way it works. I'm all over people.
Yeah.
So I said, who is he? What's his name? Where does he live? Have you got his address? And he goes, he's up there at the minute. Do you want me to have a word with him? I says, I go and get him. So yeah, he goes away for a couple of minutes, and she's like, what are you doing? It's always football. And I said, just relax. Let me speak to this guy. You don't even know what he's like. And I said, well, what am I going to do? So he comes around the corner, and Kevin comes over and he introduces himself, and made unbelievable. I'm looking going. And he says, listen, I've came over from, I've been over living in Sweden, and I've been living here for a few months and whatever. I just want to, played at a decent level and whatever. And I went, right. And I said, well, who did you play for? And he says, I played for, I sort of thought, I'm hearing things here. He says, I played at, played at national level. I'm going national level, and I played for this team and that team. All guys across the water, and played in Portugal, and I played one of the ones I heard of. I played under Jose Mourinho. And I went, this guy is one of these ones dead on. I'm getting this water.
Spoof.
I'm away up the road. But he says, no, I was at Porto, for a while, and I played a professional in Portugal for a long time, and I've been about a few different clubs, and I just happen to be in Northern Ireland, and I like it here, and I'm going to settle here. And I'm thinking, he says, right. I said, well, have you signed for anybody? And at that stage, I must say, part of the story people don't know, he had actually signed for White Abbey. Right. Within 20 minutes, he wasn't signed for White Abbey. I was like, I'm not having this. So I knew the White Abbey guys at that point, and he'd only really been to training, I think, once or twice with them.
Yeah.
And I phoned him up, and I said, listen, this guy, Kevin Amuniki, what's the deal? And I went, why? He's training with us at the minute. He's actually signed a form. And I said, lads, no offense, but I'm wanting him to play at my level, and it was no disrespect to White Abbey, because I know a lot of guys there, but he would have scored 10 or 12 every game at that level, and I said, did you really play? And he said, oh yes. So I was home on Google and looking this up, and there's pictures of him coming up, and I'm going, this all seems to be actually tallying up here. So then I'm looking at, and I don't know, I don't need to ask you, we're all in the Football Manager and on the computer. And if you ever remember Amuniki that played for Barcelona.
Yeah.
Amuniki, that's the same name. And I says, there's an Amuniki, the only Amuniki, it's a strange name. I said, but the only Amuniki I know played at Barcelona. He went, oh yeah, with Ronaldo and Guardiola. He said, that's my brother. I'm thinking, what? He goes, that's my brother, Emmanuel. And I'm going, this guy somebody's Jeremy Beadle's going to jump out here and go, line you up. So I'm going, there's no way. So I texted a couple of boys at Ballinger and I said, lads, I have no idea what's going on here, but this guy says this is where he plays, so he's coming to training tonight. Make him welcome. Let's see what he's about. And I think he's going to be, Graham Souness, Ali Day, or what, he's going to be. I go on, this guy's going to be a kipper. So I brought him down to training, mate, and I picked him up, and he was a great lad, and I still keep in touch with Kevin to this day. He came to training, and after about a minute, guys looked over at me and went, "Whoa, where did you find this guy?" And to this day, like as the story goes, I said, "Lads, I was only in Smith's by my wee fella water pistol, but never seen anything like it." And he absolutely lit it up. And it's like I said with some of the guys we have at Mossley, as soon as he played for us, I remember his debut, he scored a hat trick. He scored a hat trick in his debut, and straight away their manager came over, and I'll not name names because I wasn't happy about it, but their manager was over after the game going, "I want you on a farm." And he's like, "No, I've just joined this club." And very quickly, it hit Belfast Live, and it hit all, I was getting all sorts of phone calls, and that included Irish League clubs. And it eventually came. I kept him for probably halfway through the season. He scored goals every single week, mate. I've never seen a left foot like it. And I got a phone call one day, and it was this random number come up on the phone. It was David Healy. And he says, "Ronnie, listen, I wanted to chat with you." And I'm sort of going, again, somebody's winding me up here. There's no way. This is one of my mates pretending to be Healy here. I'm going to make it. It's getting recorded. I know it's going online. I'm thinking there's no way. But yeah, listen, it was. And Kevin ended up going up to Windsor. And it's like I say, Gary, it was one of those ones people were saying, "Ronnie, you can't let him go. Why would you let him go to Linfield?" I said, "Boys, I promised Kevin if he got his interest back, I wanted him to get his interest. He had no interest in playing anymore. If he goes back and plays at a decent level and he's got a smile on his face, I've done my job. Of course I want him to stay here and win trophies with us, but I want guys to kick on and play." And listen, he was at the stage of his career. Linfield wasn't going to be the highlight of his career, but at the same time, if I give him an interest to get back to it. So listen, he was at the Blues for a while, and I think what he found difficult was, he found it hard to break in because of his age. He was 33, 34 at the time. But I remember he was brilliant at the time. He brought me up to training sessions, and he said, "Listen, come and watch us, and go into the changing room with him, and until he feels a wee bit more, accustomed to it all."
Yep.
So I was in the changing room with him, doing all that, and all the guys were brilliant. They were super, and I wanted to watch the sessions. And listen, it was great watching the Linfield sessions over. It was the old Midgley just before they moved across to the 4G.
Yeah.
I sat with Healy for an hour one night, and just watching his coaching sessions, and he talked me through it, and just the stuff I learned within an hour. And he was really good. And I must say it was amazing to see Kevin just kick on. But listen, it didn't really happen. He made a few first team appearances, and he felt that he wasn't at that stage of career where he wanted to play for Linfield Swifts. And he was maybe with Swifts one week or on a Friday night and back with the first on Saturday, and he sort of eventually said, "Ronnie, I'm not at the stage in my career where I want to play reserve team football with 17-year-olds." And I understood that. So he ended up then moving, and he went up to Portadown and Nell Curry, and again he absolutely smashed it for I think he ended up playing a season up there for as long as Nell was there. But again, he took it, and he was absolutely phenomenal. So it's one of the ones I always get asked about. I must say, they're like, tell me the time you went into the toy store, So it was one of those ones, mate. I struck lucky. My brother always says to me, "How on earth did you manage to come out with him?" And I says, I got lucky, I must say. If it would have been anybody else.
When my wee man's old enough to demand to go to Smith's, then I'll be looking forward to it then. If that's what happens. No
doubt when you go in, I'll be sitting there anyway, mate. So
just waiting for somebody to walk past.
Honestly, you have no idea. If I get postmen and guys delivering parcels and all the house, and straight out, I'll chat away to them, and they'll maybe see a pair of old football boots lying there, and they'll go, "Did you play football?" And no, I used to. And who did you play for? And you get chatting, and within a few seconds, one of the guys says to me out there, he says, "I used to play a bit." He says, "They're the old Predators, but they're worth a few quid." And I says, "I love the old Predators." I said, I buy them in and keep them and whatever. She used to have a pair of them, back in the day. And I was like, "Right." And straight away, mate, I was like, who'd you play for? You know, and he was like, oh, I used to play a wee bit at Lisburn Distillery and Linfield. And, you know, really, here, listen, I'm managing Mossley at the minute, you know. So, mate, postman, delivery man, it doesn't matter. Somebody in a restaurant, if I hear somebody behind me at the table saying they play football, I'll turn around and go, here, who'd you play for? You know, it doesn't matter, mate. I'm all over everybody. That's the way you have to be, you know.
It is the same. Like we were out the other week, and I walked past a fella used to play for us, and he stopped playing because he got an ankle injury and stuff, and just kind of fell out of love with it. And I was talking to him for about 5 minutes, and then walked past, and the missus says, "Who's that?" And I was like, "Just trying to sign a player." And she's like, "Can we not go anywhere with you trying to sign footballers?" It's like, I know, but if we get him back, he's burning. He's really stop that.
It's exactly the same, and no doubt all the boys like she's always at me, no matter where I go. It's always football, and it's just listen, it's in the DNA, and it's just the way it is. But I'll always remember, just out of even football circles, no matter where we go, she's always like, "Do you ever go anywhere where you don't know anybody?" And I said, "But what you got to understand is, you know, football has." You've made so many friends, you know, and it's always football related. No matter who I bump into, she's like, "Who's that? You used to play football with him, or you used to play football against him, or he used to play for me." And she's like, "Is there anybody you don't know?" So we were on our honeymoon a few years ago, and we were in Florida, and we went to Disney. And I'm going to cross Disney in the boat, and she's saying like, "This place is amazing," and we've never been before, you know. So it was a trip of a lifetime, and we had the young lad with us, and we thought one day we'd take the boat across into sort of the park, and we jumped on the boat, and I am not joking. She was standing there, and we actually were just talking about. She goes, "You haven't actually spoken about football. It's great. You're not on your group chats at the minute, and you know it's great to spend a bit of time, proper time together. I want to know." And she goes, "And no matter where you go, we always know somebody." Says, "So it's great that we're here." And the next thing, mate, within a few seconds, we're standing in the middle of Florida, and some guy goes, "Burnsy," and I'm going, "You know what?" And she's going, "There's no way you know somebody there." It was one of the guys from Monkstown, like they used to play football with, and I'm going, "That is unbelievable." We were just talking about it, like in the middle of Florida, and there was a guy going, "Burnsy, what about you? Still playing?" You know, so no matter where we go. But I'll tell you another good one. When I was working up in Belfast again, it got me it put me in a bit of an embarrassing situation. But I was working in the bank at the time in Royal Avenue, and I was finishing at 8 o'clock, and I didn't drive at the time. And it was back in the day when the pot house had just opened.
Yeah.
And one of my mates had just got it. He was one of the first guys to work in it, and it was the new up and coming thing. And I was getting ready to get the bus back to Mossley. I was living in Mossley at the time, and I remember thinking, this bus does my head in. It takes about an hour. Every stop. It wasn't one of the express ones. It stops at every stop. I thought, I'm not getting the bus. Like, so I chanced my arm, and I thought, I wonder if he's working tonight. Like, the pot house was only around the corner. So I gave him a quick ring from work, and I said, "Any chance of you working tonight?" He goes, "I am. I'm on the 9." I went, "Mate, is there any?" He lived in Lauren, and I said, "Is there any way I could bounce around?" I finished at 8. "Is there any way I could bounce around and get a lift home with you the way through?" And he says, "Aye." He says, "Fine." He says, "Why don't you come around? There's a couple of new beers. You know, have a couple of beer while you're waiting on me, and I'll bring you back and drop you off." I said, "Mate, you're a legend." So I fired around, mate, at 8 o'clock, and I bounced in, and the pot house was quiet. There was nobody about. There was only one table there, and I remember a table at the very corner, right on the glass window looking out the front. And I was in the shirt and tie, obviously, with coming out of the bank, and the guys in the pot house were wearing the shirt and tie as well. So when I went in, he gives me a beer, and I'm sitting there drinking. He says, "Listen, I'm going to be in and out of the back here." He says, "If anybody comes, it's dead apart from that table. Just let me know." I says, "Dead on." So I'm sitting there drinking the beer, and I sort of, there must have been 5 or 6 guys at the table, and having a bit of a laugh, just what the lads are doing. I'm here laughing and joking, and the next thing, one of the boys catches my eye, and he holds a hand up, and he goes, "Come here, mate." And I'm like, "Me?" And he says, "Yes, come here." And I'm like, "Right." So I walked over to the table, and I says, "What's up?" He says, "Mate, will you get me the same round again there?" And I went, "What?" He goes, "Will you get me the same round?" And I went, "Man, I don't work here." And his mates burst out laughing. And I went, he goes, "Man, I'm really sorry about that." He says, "Just with your shirt and tie." And I was wearing the same colour of tie the guys. Yeah. And I went, "No, mate, don't be silly." And he goes, "Oh, mate, I've made a fool of myself. I'm sorry." So I'm looking at him going, I know this boy. I played football with him. You know, it was one of them ones. So I'm looking at him going, "I know your face." And I could see his mates going, you know, smirking and stuff. And I go, "You play football?" And he went, I did a bit when I was younger. I says, I played football again. Who do you play for? And I went, no. I says, no, I wouldn't have played against you. And I said, I'm telling you, I played football. I know your face. I played football against you. He went, no. I says, 100% I played. And they're all starting to snigger. And I'm thinking, what are they laughing at? So anyway, he goes, no, I mean, honestly, I don't think we did. Like, I didn't play any football here. Like, and I was like, right. I says, I played against you somewhere, a tournament somewhere. I know for a fact I played against you. I know your face. And I went, oh, I don't know. So anyway, I said, listen, I'll go and speak to my mate. I'll get the same round. He says, I'm so awful sorry about that. I'm embarrassed. And I said, don't worry. So I walked over to my mate and he said, what are you doing over there? I said, he called me over and asked me to get him the same round. He thought I worked here. And he laughed and he goes, no bother, listen, I'll bring it over. So he brought the round over. He came back to me and I'm sitting there looking. And I kept looking around. He goes, what are you looking at? I said, mate, see that guy with the blonde hair and a big fancy watch? I played football against him. I'm convinced. He said he didn't play any Irish League, but I'm convinced I played against him. And he went, what? Which one are you talking about? I said, the blonde one with a big fancy watch sitting there. And he went, mate, that's Nicky from Westlife. And I went, oh my, mate, see, as soon as he said it, I went, that is Nicky from Westlife. And I just sat there, froze, going, I can't believe I have made an arsehole out of myself here. So I mean, I've never drunk a beer as quick. Straight in the hit, and I swear up the road. And of course, the first song going up the road was "Flying Without Wings." Like never ever lived it down. Like, but it was one of them ones I thought, oh my word, I can't believe. But it gets you in trouble too, mate, because no matter where I go, I play football against them, you know.
But you didn't know his face at least. You just didn't know where from.
Just made a fool out of myself.
I'm sure it's a first from Nicky from Westlife as well, getting told that he played Irish League.
Yeah, I swear, unbelievable, like, unreal, like. But yeah, it's those times, like I say, you always look back and I always have some laughs and giggles, and there were some crazy times and some amazing times, you know. But you know, I loved every minute of it. Like, there's so many. Another one I'll tell you just briefly about. One of the biggest ones is sort of thinking about you saying about any stories. An absolute smasher going up to Solitude one day, playing for Ballyclare Reserves at the time, and I think it was only a game, just broke into the team, maybe 17, 18. And one of the guys, Jamesy Kirk was the manager at the time, and we were down at Solitude playing Cliftonville, and I remember getting into the change room, and there's one of these foreign guys. I don't know if you'll ever remember him, but he ended up playing a wee bit for Distillery and played a bit at Glentoran. Was it Ramul Mindukna? Always remember Mindukna. And you'd maybe know him to see, but he did actually pretty well. But he came to Ballyclare first. But I'll always remember getting into the change room at Solitude. Everybody was there, and Geordie Falloon was like, where's the new guy? Where's Mindukna? And we were like, no idea. So we're all looking about, going like, he mustn't be weighing in. You may get somebody else warmed up. He says, I want to have a look at him. I'm going to get him started. He comes with a good resume, you know. And I'm going, I have no idea. I don't think he's weighing in. Mate, no joke, 15, 20 minutes went past. Next thing, the door knocks. And then steps this guy, big duffel coat on, zipped up to the neck. There's Mindukna. You know, he'd only trained one night with us. He trained on the Thursday night. We were playing on the Saturday. So I'm looking at him going, flip me, you know, big unit of a guy. And he was quality in training the night before. Yeah. So he comes in, and he just, you know, being a foreign guy, I'm sorry, you know. And we're all still getting to know him. And Johnny says, don't worry about it, you know, take a seat. And he sits down. Jordy says, I've just gone through my team talk. So Jordy talked on for 10 more minutes. And Mindukna's sitting there with a coat zipped up. And this noise comes out of nowhere. And I'm looking around going, what was that? The boys are going, I heard that too. And we're looking over towards his direction. And it's like, what was that? And they're like, I don't know. So Jordy's still giving his team talk. And he's going, right, you're on corners, you're doing this, you're doing that. There's a noise again. We're going to Jordy, nearly paused and went, lads, what is that? No idea. So we had a couple of minutes went past, and I swear I will never ever forget it. He must have been in the room about 10 or 15 minutes, and the next thing goes, right, we're going out to get warmed up now. He says, yes, that's no problem. Goes, I get changed. He unzipped his coat. He had his baby inside his coat, and like, he had his baby inside his coat with like a baby strap. And he just took the baby out. The baby was sleeping away. And he took it out. He says, I'm sorry. He says, the wife, she was busy tonight. He says, Jordy, do you mind minding the baby while I play? Mate, it's the funniest thing I have ever seen in the changing room. We went out and played that night. We warmed up, and I will never forget it. Geordie Falloon, we were all sitting playing football, and Geordie Falloon sitting there with a baby in the bottle. Just, it was incredible. But there are things, I look back at those things, and there are things you never, ever get back,
Yeah.
and you'll never see things like that again, just the way Irish League used to be and the way the change room used to be. And listen, I still love the change room, the camaraderie, and you know what it's like. It's amazing to be a part of it. But I just don't think football at that level, especially reserve level and whatever level, it just isn't what it used to be. There were some characters about then. It was unbelievable. It really was.
But now we don't even have a change room. That's the worst thing about it. So
and that's, I must say, I think that's a big part of football at the minute.
Big time.
Guys really miss the change room, and it's just not the same. When you can get fired up in a change room and ready and have your proper team tuxie sitting out in a pitch and the lashing rain and everybody's freezing before the start. You've warmed up and you're changing into this and changing into that. It's a nightmare. So hopefully, mate, things continue to improve and we can keep the change rooms there, because it's a big thing. It's not the same without it.
100%. Mate, I want to thank you for giving up your time and doing this. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. It's given me the hunger to get even more interviews in now as well, so it has.
Absolutely. No, listen, I really appreciate it, mate. And like I say, a big thanks, obviously, for the tournament you organised and obviously doing this. This is brilliant, mate, especially over lockdown with guys having, their heads are melted and nothing to do. And, it's been brilliant. I've watched many of them, and it's great. Listen, I really appreciate being part of it. Some of the stories, I'm sure plenty of guys have heard all the stories from me, and there's maybe some guys haven't heard any of them. So, but listen, mate, I really appreciate it. It's been top drawer, and I wish you a successful season yourself. And I'm looking forward to the year kicking off.
Mate, I want to thank you for that. It's very, very kind of you, and I wish you every success with Mossley this season. I'll be watching your results, see how you're getting on and all.
Fingers crossed, mate. But hopefully we can get going and kick up. That's the main thing. Everybody, I think, no matter what club you're at this year, I think everybody will look at this season and just not take it for granted, and go for it. And while we're all fit and healthy, if anything, the pandemics, it's taught everybody that while you're fit and healthy and you're able to do these things, get out and enjoy yourself. And it's been a tough time for everybody. So listen, it's brilliant. Really looking forward to it. And mate, massive thanks for getting me on. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you. The podcast is sponsored by Learners Ross Driving School and Drumbo Park Racecourse, as always. And once again, I want to thank Ronnie for his time, and I'll hopefully be back with an interview in the next couple of weeks. Thanks for listening, folks.